All right. All right. So I know in the last year and a half, we've all become familiar with quite a few of these remote facilitation tools. I don't want to assume, though, that everyone knows Miro. So I'm going to just give you a couple quick tips here. When you enter the board, the link that I sent, you should be somewhere around here. But
Caroline, you're not sharing your
oh,
screen if you wanted to. That's okay.
Yeah, I did this last night too. Okay, here we go. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when you enter the Miro board, you should be somewhere around here. And I just want to show you how to navigate around. At the bottom left, you should have a pane with a bunch of icons. The furthest left says frames. And if you open that up, you will then see it's kind of like a visual table of contents, and you can navigate to any part of the board that you wish. For now, we're going to stay in the introduction area. I want to also mention, this came up last night, if you're using like a mouse and a Mac, and this doesn't seem to work, you can go over at the top. There are 3 buttons next to, I don't know if you guys have share, probably not, but three lines like this. And if you go there and you hit navigation mode, you will be able to choose whether you're using a mouse, trackpad, or touch screen to navigate, so that Miro recognizes that. You should be able, most things are locked down except where we're asking you to interface. But so if you want to move around in the board too, another option is just to click down on your left mouse key and just kind of get this hand thing that lets you move things around. You can zoom in and zoom out depending on whether you're using a mouse. If you're using a mouse, I'm just scrolling the wheel on my mouse. And trackpad or touchscreen, you can use the finger motions that would let you do the zoom in and zoom out in other programs. There's also a more manual option over here at the bottom right, so you can click the button to zoom in or zoom out. And I guess probably the final thing to mention is, in any of the places where we're going to ask you to interact, you can just select the shape and you double click on it, and that will, you can start typing in by double clicking on it. Oops. And I inadvertently added a box there. The last thing maybe just to show you is in your board and in this spot, but in many other places, we have links all over the place to things that materials we're sharing during this session. So this is a presentation that Terri and Will are going to be sharing, and this is one that various people working on initiatives are going to be sharing. There's also the high-level session drive, which where we'll have recordings and some of these materials, a link to the CMP workspace, and et cetera. So you can always come back to this Miro board and find links that you might need. We'll also create a PDF version of it and share that, upload that to the session drive. With that, I think maybe I'll just pause and see if there are any, well, actually maybe technical questions. If you could put them into the chat box, and then Will and Terri, if needed, please jump in and interrupt me, and we'll address the technical questions. So just kicking things off with our session objective. This session is really oriented toward, I think a lot of you know who CMP is, or you know who CCNet is, or what they are, but maybe you don't know how they interact together. Where's the overlap and where is there not overlap? And we've heard through surveys and community forums and fora and other venues that people are a little confused about the difference, as well as not clear on how to get involved. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to share what is going on in these two different groups and how you can get involved, and actually kind of start getting you involved with specific initiatives, give you opportunity to dive a little deeper. So we have an icebreaker introductions, and then we'll move to an overview of CCNet and CMP. We'll highlight some initiatives, and then you'll have about 60 minutes to do breakout work. You'll be able to get to know two different initiatives, I think, in a little more depth. And then we'll come back together. We'll have some time for reflection, and then the evaluation. That's part of what the CCNet Rally team is asking all of us to do with our sessions. So I'm going to scroll over here, and hopefully you guys are over here with me, and you can see a map of the world, maybe a little non-traditional perspective. And what we would like you to do is, up above, there are a bunch of stickies here, and we would like you to take a sticky and drag it over to where you are, and then put your name on it. And I found this kind of, when I did this last night, and I did it again right now, I like ended up way up in Canada, just as a, like my initial eyeballing where I am, getting used to this upside down or different perspective.
Yes.
So it looks like we have some of our Canadian friends here, and let's see, up Uruguay, there's Paula. We've got South Africa, a few folks from there. Yeah, feel free to scroll around and find where people are. And if you're having any challenges, please put them in the chat box, and Will and Terri will take a look and see if we can address those. Got a few folks over in Europe. All right. That's great. Fun to see where everybody is. Thank you for joining from all around the world and being part of this session. Terri, shall I turn it over to you now?
Yes, that sounds great. So the next section is just to the right of the map. You can see a section that says general impressions, and we would love to hear what you already know, and it's not expected that you necessarily know a lot about this, but wanting to understand where people are at in their understanding of the Conservation Measures Partnership and Conservation Coaches Network. So please describe those organizations in 5 or fewer words. And we got some great, potentially new taglines last night. So we're looking forward to what you all have to say as well. Great, we're getting some good responses. I see global partnership of conservation professionals, organizations driving up conservation practice, community working collaboratively in conservation. These are all for Conservation Measures Partnership, international collaboration, leadership in conservation. Wonderful. Community of practice of conservation-minded organizations. And over on Conservation Coaches Network, community of CS standards coaches, network of conservation planners using CS, sharing expertise, improving skills through cooperation. That's what I mean by taglines. Very nice. Collaboration among conservation coaches. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it seems we have some great new thoughts about these two organizations. We'll give you another minute or two, and then we've got a presentation we'll share on this. So actually, Caroline, it'd be great if you could stop sharing yours. Yep. And I see people are still typing, so I'll give you just another minute. We'll move into our presentation. Great. All right. Get into presentation mode here. So we thought it would be beneficial to just kind of go through these two organizations, which are very closely aligned, and speak to what they each are and to the ways in which we collaborate between the two organizations. So I'm going to start, and then Will's going to jump in here. So we thought we'd also share a picture of the last time we were all together in Australia, many of us. What a great time the rallies are when they're in person. And so far, this has been a great experience for myself to be together virtually as well. Not quite as good, but still great. So the Conservation Coaches Network, as many of us know, is our tagline, or this is all from the website. So strengthening conservation strategies and practice through coaching. And the mission of the organization is a global community of trained professional coaches that use the conservation standards to strengthen conservation action and results around the world. And for those that attended the plenary, John went into this in greater detail, but I just wanted to remind us all of the values that are a part of the Conservation Coaches Network. We are results oriented, that we really strive for those tangible outcomes. We're inclusive and diverse in our planning, as well as who we are as coaches. And we strive for innovation and excellence. We're committed to that, using new techniques and innovation. We have distributed responsibility, and we're non-hierarchical. And this is one of the keys. We are a network of individuals, and that is in contrast to, as Will talks about, the Conservation Measures Partnership. And lastly, but certainly not least, is a culture of cooperation, that we are committed to sharing and learning in an open and supportive manner. So we just wanted to start with that and make sure that we're all on the same page for those that might have come from one community or another. And I will turn it over to Will for the CMP overview.
Sure, thanks, Terry. So yeah, some of you, many of you will, I'm sure, know the Conservation Measures Partnership as well. This is a more organization-focused collaboration of partnership. So it tends to be conservation-oriented NGOs, but there are also member organizations that are government agencies or funders or private businesses. So it's quite varied, actually. It's not only NGOs. And one of the main functions of the CMP, the Conservation Measures Partnership, is to kind of act as stewards of the conservation standards, to be the owners of our default sector standards for conservation practice, as we seek to improve practice and find better ways to achieve greater impact. And you can see the vision there at the bottom. So collaboration is very much at the heart of what we do, collaborating around common standards, but of course with different flavors depending on context, and collaborating on ways and tools and means that we can to improve conservation practice. And then working alongside in a kind of an alliance with CCNet to do that jointly together. So if you move on to the next slide, Terry, I just wanted to highlight that we do formalize our alliance, or this alliance between CMP and CCNet, somewhat in the context of an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. I think we're currently on to our fourth MOU. So they tend to last for 2 years. So this one has been for 2020 to 2021. So we're actually due to revise and update it going forward for 2022-23. And this has evolved a little bit over the years in terms of what the spirit of it and how we represent the relationship, but not dramatically. We're still independent entities working as an alliance towards some common objectives, but we have framed it a little bit differently, evolved it a bit over the years as we've gone forward. And currently our MOU is framed under these 4 areas, these 4 collaboration areas. So I'll just go through each of those briefly in turn, looking first of all at good governance, communication and collaboration, and giving you a sense of some of the things that we're doing at the moment. Terri, have you got another slide on that or not? Yeah, good. Yeah, so these are some of the things that we've been doing in the last couple of years, and many of which you may be aware of. So the website, I think on Terri's first slide there was actually a brief snapshot of the websites and how they fit together now. So we've got separate but coordinated sites for CMP, CCNet and the conservation standards. And that has really helped a lot to give us more clarity for people. And also easy routing for people to find materials that they want. Of course, it can also be improved, but it is better, much better than we've had before. And it also does support our governance, and we can represent and show, for example, our charters up there, our strategic plans, what we're trying to do, both of which have also been updated in recent times for CMP and CCNet. And other things just to mention in terms of governance and the way we're going about things. So under our MOU, we have a representative of CMP. The CMP board sits on the CCNet board, and of the CCNet board sits on the CMP board, just to give us good collaboration across. And that happens to be Terri and myself who provide those functions at this point. And also to say, in terms of trying to make sure we've got good representation globally, and we're open to members joining from all sorts of different situations and all sorts of different sizes and types of organizations. We have been reviewing, for example, in CMP, our membership strategy and how we can make sure that that is inclusive of all sorts of organizations. And we actually revised our charter slightly to try and make that more accommodating. And probably it's in fairness to go a bit more in the direction of CCNet, where CCNet is very global in nature. CMP probably has been a bit less so, but it's moving more in that direction and being more inclusive in our charter and how we engage members is probably helping us to do that. Moving on. So other things that we've been doing, so we mentioned the websites in terms of in promoting and evolving good conservation practice. The conservation standards themselves, we're on to version 4 now, as you probably know. Many of you will have participated in that revision of the conservation standards material and product. And I think we were really happy with where it got to in terms of being a very engaging product as well as technically sound. And then supporting that, things like updated PowerPoints to be able to do better training and deliver that and outreach. And then much of our topic today, the collaborative learning initiatives. So I won't say too much about that because that's very much what we're talking about in these sessions. But just to say, right through this MOU, we're trying to represent some of our things that we're doing jointly and sometimes more separately, representing it as a holistic, sort of integrated and represented comprehensive plan of what we are trying to do in terms of improving conservation practice. So some things that we do are more led by CMP. Some things that we do are more led by CCNet. Some things are very much joint. That's fine. But in our MOU, we try to provide a bit of an overview of those things so we see how it all fits together. And yes, it's true, there are sometimes overlaps, but in many ways we see that as a positive thing. Going forward, we don't see the nature of the relationship changing dramatically. It'll still be in a similar place, but we just try to make sure we're clear and also that we're covering all the important gaps. Yeah, so this is an important area as we go forward. How do we make sure we're being effective? So we've got things like a conservation audit tool, and that helps us to organizations that use that can get a sense of how their program and how their organization is doing. CCNet also has some measures of how that's doing. Of course, we want to get better at that, about how we know the quality of our conservation practice, and there's an initiative also to keep it improving in that area. And then the other area which is a big one, a massive one, of course, is around capacity development and institutionalization. There has again been great progress on this. So in the last while, some of you might know Durrell have started off a new conservation standards introduction course, which is being delivered virtually, so that's great. There's also the University of Wisconsin Conservation Essentials course, which many of you may know also, as well as things that we're trying to make sure we've got the quality of what we're looking for in terms of quality of coaching, quality of practitioners that we might want to really establish. So we know that once people have had coaching or training, that we actually know that they're to a certain quality standard. So that could also be important, is also important. And then of course this event itself, a rally, which ideally we would have in person, but we're still doing a great job doing it virtually. So those are some of the areas. Those are the four main areas under the MOU. Going forward, it might well be that we've still got essentially the same four areas, but that'll be for some discussion between CMP and CCNet boards. So the overall shape of it, I would imagine, will be in a similar space, but the actual activities and initiatives that we do underneath that might evolve somewhat. I think I will stop there.
And it goes back to Caroline.
Great. Thanks, Will and Terri. I'm going to start sharing my screen again and ask you all to go back to the Miro board. And you were previously in the first impressions or your impressions of CMP and CCNet. If I could ask you to scroll a little bit to the right, and this is kind of really just think of it as a baseline. It's okay to say you have no idea what the initiatives are out there, but we kind of want to get a sense from the community if you know of any initiatives and what they do. So if you can just take a minute or two to fill out this space.
Oh, you're sharing the Miro link. Yes, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, somebody mentioned the PHE, Family Planning Initiative. That's part of the collaborative learning we've been working on. The CS training and coaches training, the coaches rallies, the audit tool. Yeah, you guys know. The Library of Indicators, yep, the Conservation Actions and Measures Library. Lots of topics being addressed. The more, I like this little feedback too, more funded initiatives too short. Yeah, we would all like to see those last longer. Not clear how to get involved. Thanks for that honesty. I hope at the end of the session today that it is a little more clear. But maybe just to respond to that, I always welcome an email just directly to me. This is Caroline, so Caroline@fwesonline.org. And so if anybody is ever unclear, I can probably point you to the right person. But I do hope after the end of this session, you have a little more awareness of how to get involved. So great, lots of initiatives here, and I think you can all continue to fill that in, but I am going to switch over to a presentation we have where we're going to share a little bit more about the initiatives that we have going on. We're focusing primarily on some CMP-led initiatives, but these are not just CMP being involved. It's been great. CCNet members, the broader CS community have been involved, have stepped up, have really supported this. So I see it as a very much a collaborative effort. So just a high level overview of some of these initiatives. I want to show you how you can find this when you're on your own and you can't remember what we talked about today, or it's a little fuzzy. If you go to the CMP website and you're inside the CMP part itself, there's a spot that has initiatives here. And once you click on that, you'll get this beautiful picture here, but you can scroll down and there's an overview of all the different initiatives, all of the current initiatives that we have going on. And there's also a link to the CMP workspace. And this is a little bit more of an internal facing website, but it's where all of our different initiatives coordinate their work. So I'm going to go over here to a screenshot of that just to give you an idea of the structure. There's a lot of basic background information about CMP and kind of the operations and coordination, but there's a tab that is, or a page and a bunch of subpages that are focused on initiatives themselves. And if you go in a little deeper, you can access all of these initiatives and descriptions. I'll show you just a couple in a moment. And you can also, we do initiative showcases every 6 to 12 months or so. And so if you want to see any of the initiative showcases over the last year or so, they're linked in here. You can also find these as well as other updates that members and people from the CS community have been sharing via our YouTube channel. And hopefully if you're on the CCNet listserv, you're also getting information about participating in these showcases and the conservation and practice sessions that CMP does every quarter. So we're really trying to widen the group and kind of increase the collaboration between CMP and CCNet. I want to take just a quick minute. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to show you, if you dive in deeper to any one of these, you can kind of see generally what these are from their title, but then you could dive in deeper and see, for example, this is the group that has been working on the videos that you hopefully have been seeing, the testimonial videos and the anthem, the high level overview video. And so there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's also the group that worked on the website. So you could click down here and, if you really wanted to, you could go into the coordination notes and see, the behind the scenes stuff. We welcome any of that, but that's just a quick overview of what you can find on this website. I prefer to leave the time to some of the representatives of initiatives that we have here, rather than going into those initiatives or a further description of any of those initiatives. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and just remind you, in case you weren't aware, that there are, actually, I think I got the date wrong here. This is not November 5th. I think this is November 8th, but there are rally sessions. Some of the initiatives are presenting in rally sessions. And so we would definitely encourage you to go and check those out. And I will update that date with the correct one. Actually, that's not quite so relevant anymore. So now we're going to hear from the different initiatives. We have 4 of our initiative leads on the call right now, and there was a 5th one. This time zone doesn't work for her. So I am going to share the recording from her session last night. And actually, I think I have to stop sharing and make sure I'm sharing my audio. So just a moment while I fix that. Okay, here we go. And after we hear from, this is Anissa Lawrence. After we hear from Anissa, then we'll turn it over to our initiative leads on the call.
Looking after the nature-based solution initiative for CMP, and so we thought it would be good just to give you a bit of an overview of what's happening in this initiative and where it's up to at the moment. And it's really about understanding the value of nature-based solutions for achieving cost-effective benefits for biodiversity, climate, and people to drive conservation action. So I'll go into a little bit about what we're doing now. Thanks, Carolyn. So this is just a bit about us. So myself and Jess are the 2 people working on this project. TRMR is an NGO based in Australia that is focused on building resilient communities and reversing nature loss to help unlock transformational change. And we work mostly across Asia Pacific and Australia, using a whole range of different approaches to deliver on our mission. Thanks. So where the nature-based solution initiative fits into what is happening within CMP. So as Caroline said, there's lots of initiatives that CMP is supporting through the collective impact and collective learning program. And so given, CMP was formed with the idea that we'd learn from one another and improve our work, drawing on each other's experiences, this NBS review, if you like, is about that, is about looking at diving into that particular topic and seeing what we can learn from it from CMP members, as well as the broader conservation community and so on, and then putting that into a nice, easy to look at piece of information to help others be more informed and be able to make some decisions about nature-based solutions. Thanks. So for the project that we're doing, we'll be looking at answering these 5 questions, and it's all centered around what is the value of nature-based solutions. So the first question is about what makes them different from other approaches that have been used in the past, and what are the particular aspects associated with that. We're looking at what are their benefits or lack of benefits in some cases for framing something as a nature-based solution. And obviously it's the buzzword at the moment, and even at the COP it's being thrown around everywhere, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. It's like the new big thing for the world. The third question we're going to look at is what evidence is there that nature-based solutions are delivering benefits, both for biodiversity and climate, but also importantly people, at a large or a small scale, and what are the conditions where they tend to work or not. So what are those enabling factors that need to be in place for a successful project? We're also looking for examples of cost-benefit analysis work that might have been done to show if they're an efficient and effective alternative to some of the other work that happens around addressing challenges of society. So some of the grey infrastructure engineering type work in the watershed, wash space, or the wash space, for example. And then we'll also be looking at whether there's any genetic theories of change, and so far I haven't found any, so we'll develop one up as a starting point. Thanks. So in a little while after we finish all these introductions to the initiatives, we're gonna have some breakout groups, and these are the 4 questions that I'm keen to have you think about if you're interested in talking a little bit more about NBS. So what are the benefits? How is it changing your on-ground approach? What are the lessons learned that you're finding from it? And then what are those enabling conditions that are needed for success? Thanks. So in terms of what the process is or the timeline, we're in the middle of doing interviews at the moment. I actually got my last one this afternoon, Sydney time. And then the report and the theory of change should be available in early December. And then we'll also be doing a couple of webinars to suit the different time zones sometime after that. And if you're interested in contacting me or so on, and you'd be keen to be interviewed as part of the process, it's not too late. And my email's on the screen if you want to make contact with me. Thanks. Caroline, that's
All right. So probably just to, I guess, be super clear, Anissa is not joining us here, so we won't have that breakout session, but her contact information was there, and you can also, we have a sign up sheet where you can sign up for initiatives, and you can always reach out to me. So I am going to turn it over to Adrienne.
Hey everyone, my name is Adrienne Marvin, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiative. So it's JEDI when we are feeling fun, and it is DEIJ when we're feeling very serious. So I use them fairly interchangeably. You can go to the next slide. So we've been working with a consultant, Lacey Consulting, this is Leander, and his colleague Missy, whose photo we couldn't get for the presentation. And they've really been taking the lead on developing the products that we have so far. And I'm also supported by my colleagues at Foundations of Success, Ashley and Judy. And so here's how we fit into the CMP strategic plan. We fit somewhere in between updating and evolving the conservation standards and developing new guidance and tools. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is, in the end, figure out how to best incorporate these DEIJ practices into our conservation standards guidance. So in the short term, this will probably look like separate tools and resources being provided to the community, but really we want to get to a place where we can fully integrate it. So there we are in the second phase of this initiative. In the first phase, we had Leander conduct a number of key informant interviews with folks who are already well-versed in trying to incorporate these DEIJ practices into their conservation projects. And he developed a report for us that sort of outlined some of the key questions that practitioners can ask themselves as they're designing new projects that will help them better capture some of the DEIJ aspects in their work. But from that, we realized that we still had a significant number of gaps. There's a lot of stuff we don't know or we haven't figured out yet. And so in this phase, Leander has a survey that he sent out to our community that's trying to get again, a sense of what folks are already doing, but then identifying the spaces where more guidance, tools, or resources might be useful. So there's a link to the survey in the PowerPoint here, and it would be really helpful. That survey is still open. We'd love to hear from you if you have some ideas. And you can also check out our phase 1 report if you haven't seen it already. So what's next? This is very much the beginning of this initiative, and we're really looking to keep the momentum going over time. So as we analyze these survey results coming in, we're hoping that it's going to inform a strategic plan specifically around JEDI. And from there, we hope to develop some guidance and resources, coaching and facilitation toolkits, and then, as I said, ultimately integrate this fully into the next version of the conservation standards. So what we're really asking is if you're interested, excited, curious about this initiative at all, we have an equity working group at CMP, and we would love to have your input and ideas and questions. I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Adrienne. So Adrienne has another meeting that she needs to be at. So there will not be a breakout session today with Adrienne, but you have a link to the presentation in our Miro board. And so there's ways to contact Adrienne or Ashley, and again, reach out to me if you get a bit lost in that. Thank you, Adrian. And can I turn it over to Sabina now?
Hello, everybody. My name is Sabina, and I'm working with Sheila O'Connor, independent consultant, on the Environment and Development Agendas as Strategies for Conservation initiative. And this is a collaborative learning initiative where we're exploring how conservation organizations and other stakeholders who are partners in conservation influence and leverage high-level political processes to secure environment and human well-being outcomes on the ground. Next, thank you. And within the CMP strategic plan, we are right where that red box is, the collaborative learning initiative. And that's basically where CMP is looking at how the conservation sector is tackling strategic issues of our time, and we're sharing learning lessons to improve our practice around those issues. Next slide, please. So just a quick introduction to what is the meat of the topic that we're dealing with. So we call them big agendas. And again, these are the high-level political processes that are involving government-to-government interactions and commitments. And they're very important because they have these cross-scalar implications jurisdictionally and sectorally. And they typically focus on like holistic outcomes, so environment and development. And we're very familiar with many of the most popular ones that are going on at these times. And it's really interesting because you can see there's a plethora of agreements out there and in development since 1900s, but and they're very high profile, they're controversial, a significant amount of resources are used to move them through negotiations and ratification. And yet year by year, we're always getting notice that these targets are not being met. And this is kind of signaling that there may be a disconnect between securing these global victories, like global victories of securing intergovernmental agreements, and local victories of securing our tangible conservation outcomes on the ground. Now, next slide, please. So some of the questions that we're addressing in our initiative are, to what extent are these agendas actively being used in portfolios of conservation organizations? How are organizations influencing and leveraging these agendas? In which circumstances is it necessary to use these agendas to push forward your work? And what challenges do various stakeholders face when they use these agendas as their strategies? Next slide, please. We're in phase 2 of this initiative. In phase 1, we defined what the strategy generally looks like. And we have a situational analysis and theory of change, which shows generally what it would look like if you were trying to use agendas as a strategy in your work. And we gathered some recommendations for design and execution. These were based on interviews with practitioners and workshops and preliminary literature review. And if you would like to do the group work session with us today in this initiative today, we would be looking at one of the case studies. I'll do a very quick overview of one of the case studies in which indigenous communities in the Peruvian Amazon had leveraged the REDD+ mechanism to secure land rights and human well-being outcomes in their community development plans. And provide the world with an alternative model for how REDD+ could be operationalized. In phase 2, what we're basically doing is trying to build more of the evidence base surrounding the products of phase 1. So more extensive literature review, more case studies from different actors, to understand whether our theory of change is realistic, whether we're missing anything significant and whatnot. Next slide, please. So our products would again be these newly vetted theories of change, one per different actor group, and orientation guides or recommendations for design and implementation of these agendas if you choose to pursue that as an organization. and a CMP mini webinar, which provides our high-level summaries and of our findings. And we would have now secured some baseline research to produce a mini review journal article next year. And finally, if you'd like to get involved, the quickest way is to complete our survey. It's only about 4 questions, 5 to 10 minutes. And it's basically going through what I had just introduced to you of what we're exploring. You can participate in a focus group workshop that we're holding at the end of November, where we're presenting the semi-final drafts of our work. And you have an opportunity to dig deep into it, ask questions, learn from the findings, and give us new ideas of things that we might have missed and we need to look into a little bit more. You can share a case study if you've worked with environment and development agendas, or you can point us to new leads of where we can get more information about this topic. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Sabina. And we have one more initiative, and then we'll move over to the breakout sessions. Claire?
Hi, everyone. In this whirlwind presentation, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the Conservation Standards Effectiveness and Impact Learning Initiative. I'm Claire Relton, and I'm working on this initiative along with Sheila O'Connor. We're aiming to investigate what evidence there is that already exists that applying the conservation standards does in fact lead to more efficient and more effective conservation, which then hopefully leads to greater conservation impact. We're also looking at ways for how we might be able to expand this out and develop a sort of long-term research project in terms of collecting robust and scientific evidence to answer this question. And not only are we focusing on the conservation standards, we sort of broadened it out a little bit to look at other adaptive management cycles. Thanks, Caroline. So this is our team so far. I just wanted to thank all of you who have been involved for your contributions. We are still working on our data analysis, so there is a little bit more time for you to contribute or collaborate if you'd like to. Next slide, please. So our initiative fits into CMP's strategy for goal 1. Essentially, we're testing that assumption that if organizations adopt a practice like the conservation standards, then it'll lead to more agile and effective conservation in the long term. So essentially, we're testing that assumption. And in the next slide, we expanded out that theory of change to identify what key results might come in between those two results. And this is our complex version of our theory of change. We've also got a simplified version, identifying what those key results might look like. And in addition, we identified potentially what barriers or trade-offs might exist to the use of the conservation standards. So we have developed a sort of resource and evidence library where we've collected case studies, testimonials, management plans, scientific papers, as much as we could. And we're sort of identifying what type of evidence is in there. Is it qualitative? Is it anecdotal? Is it scientific? And what key results does that evidence link to along our theory of change? You may have also seen we recently launched a survey. So the survey is now closed, but this was one of the results that came out of our survey. We found that 87.5% of participants said that using an adaptive management approach like the conservation standards does lead to more effective projects. Obviously, again, this is sort of testimonial evidence. So what we're really trying to do is find that scientific and robust evidence we can use to prove this concept. So we're finalizing that data analysis in the next few weeks. We are identifying suitable measures of success and methods that we can use in the future to measure these assumptions. We're writing up a final report and hopefully delivering a webinar early next year. And then we really want to invest time in developing that long-term research proposal, as I spoke about, and potentially expanding this work into the learning initiative next year. If you'd like to get involved, please feel free to contact myself or Sheila, or join our session after this, and we can talk about it in a little bit more detail. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Oops, I have a little bit of an echo, and I apologize. I misspoke. I was on last night's order, and we have one more presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen though, because I think Marika Suval is going to share from her screen.
There we go. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
And see the screen? Excellent. So welcome everyone, and thanks for letting us tell you about the Conservation Essentials courses. Some of you are very familiar with them already. So these courses are being developed in collaboration or as part of a partnership between the Wisconsin University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies, the Conservation Measures Partnership, and FOS. And this is the awesome team that is behind this. And we started out as the TAM team, and we kind of still call ourselves a Teaching Adaptive Management team. My name is Marika. I didn't introduce myself earlier, and I'm part of this team that are doing work that are trying to fit into the CMP strategic plan in this way, which is that we're looking at training the next generation. That's one of the strategies that we're addressing, and also to develop online courses in the conservation standards. So this strategy is intended to explore options for improved online learning of the conservation standards, something that has actually been immensely helpful during the pandemic. The impetus for these courses came from a 2019 survey report by CMP, CCNet, and FOS, which identified that there really was, that the community was really looking for training in steps 3 to 5 of the conservation standards, and that they were really looking for products to support this. So our courses are currently, we have a step 3 course running, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a moment. We are in development on a step 4 course. We are talking about a step 5 course, developing that, and we are very motivated to start our development on a step 1 and 2 course. Current step 3 course is currently in its 5th cohort. It's been running for over a year. Our students hail from all across the world, multiple time zones, which sometimes makes meeting times challenging. And here's a snapshot of some of them and some of the things that they are saying. So inside each course, we have things like lecture presentations and stories from the field. Those are being shared with the conservation standards community, and I'll tell you a bit more about those in a moment. We also have other aspects which you can read about on screen. I think what makes this course somewhat unique and that a lot of students really appreciate is the peer review process and the fact that they have instructor access at all times. It also opens up the opportunity for a lot of networking opportunities. So the resources we're making available to the wider community includes lectures and stories from the field. An easy way to find these is to just Google Conservation Essentials playlist or Conservation Essentials YouTube. I will also paste links to all these resources for you in the chat box. Here's the stories from the field. You may recognize some of the faces there. And then our website has been updated with our 2022 courses. We some of them are already have applicants, and we also welcome inquiries from organizations wanting to send groups of employees. We have accommodated a number of such groups in these courses, and I think they find that it's a really great way for teams within an organization to learn together. So in our breakout session, we are going to ask you to help us identify the learning gaps. I think we're all aware of those as both as practitioners and coaches. And we'll also give you, just talk with you a little bit about these resources that we're making available. So we hope you'll join us.
Great, thank you, Marika. And I'm going to now start sharing my screen again. And so now is you all have the opportunity to learn a little more about these different initiatives and even start providing some input feedback to the groups. So we're going to have two different breakout sessions, we're going to have two breakout sessions. Each one's going to be 30 minutes. So you can choose where you want to go the first time around and where you want to go the second time. So you'll actually get to visit two of the three initiatives. So if I can get you all to come over here and put in where you would like to go, then I can start assigning people. And once you put in where you want to go, you also get to get a 1 to 2 minute break while I put the assignments in.
Hey, Caroline, this is
Yes.
sorry to be a pain, but I just switched from my phone to my computer. Can you put me in the effectiveness one? It's Nick.
Sure. Actually, Will or Terry, can I ask you to do that while I get people into their rooms?
Yes,
Thank
Nick,
you.
I'll put you in there and you
Thanks.
can let us, if you want to sign up for where you want to go in session 2, that might be helpful. It's on the Miro board.
Yeah, I just don't have the link to the mirror board, but it's not.
Okay.
I just joined. That's the problem.
Here we go. I will put that back in too.
All right, perfect. I can do that.
Okay, I'm still seeing for our first session quite a few people who have not signed up.
Here you go.
Training for tomorrow's leaders is missing from the breakout session 1 on my.
It's the
Miro.
orange one. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you
It's
in
like
the right? Oh, did you
It's
put
like
in the right
behind
link?
there.
Oh, you know what? I think maybe the wrong link
Did
went
I?
into the chat box.
I'm so sorry.
That was from last night. It's coming back.
Oh,
Oh.
I picked it up from up above.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's just like there's a block there, but there's anyway. It's probably.
That's okay. You would like to
Okay.
go in there, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead and put me.
Okay. I will put.
Wherever makes sense in terms of
Okay.
numbers.
Yeah. The link, I think, which is from up above, is the yes, it looks like it's the right number. Is how to get in, and then there's a breakout session sign up for session 2, and that's what we're asking people. This is session 2 of the whole workshop, but there's a breakout session 1 and breakout session 2.
I'm gonna rename those well, actually,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do that now. It's yeah.
But it's up at the top to the right if you're looking at the in your Miro board.
So do we need to fill something out? I just filled out the breakout 2, so I need to do something in breakout 1
doing
also.
2.
Yep.
Yes, you're
Yes, in both of them.
there are going to be 2 different.
Okay.
We're gonna do
No,
each
I thought the
breakout
breakout
twice.
1 was from yesterday. Okay, thank you.
No. Yeah. Sorry about that confusion.
Herding cats.
Yes. No.
All right.
No problem.
Wait, I think I might have put somebody in the wrong spot.
If you do end up in
Um,
the wrong spot, come back out to the main room and I can assign you into the right place.
Yes. Nathan. Okay. All right. And where did Nick want to go for? He wants CS effectiveness for.
He's in there now. He's got his name up there now.
Right, but I have to assign him to the breakout group.
Yeah.
Okay. And clarity. Okay, I'm going to in just a moment open up these groups, and then whoever's left will figure out where to put you.
Yes.
And like
I'll mostly stay back in plenary, and so if anybody gets bumped out, I can let you back into a room.
okay, and I think I misplaced Jeannie. All right. Sorry, everybody. Let me. All right, well, I'm going to, Jeannie, if you end up in the wrong room, please come back out to the breakout rooms. I'm going to open these so people can get going.
So as people move out, Anne or Becky or Brittany or Molly, if you want to tell me what room you want to go to, I can easily assign you.
I signed up for effectiveness in session 1. This is
Okay.
Molly.
Great.
And the training tomorrow's leaders for session 2.
Great. I'll send you to the first one and we'll get you assigned the second time.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi, Caroline.
Hi, Molly. Great to see you.
You too.
All right, so Terry, I'm going to go into my breakout. You
Okay.
good here?
Hi, I signed up for ED, and I am in the CS, which is I want to go to second.
Is that Jeannie?
Is that possible?
Yes.
Yes.
Which one do you want to go to now? I'm sorry.
I was signed up for the environmental development agendas
Got it.
for the first one.
Here you go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for dealing with that, Terry.
No problem. Brittany or Anne?
Organizing a few
There
things.
she is.
She's organizing herself. There she
Okay,
is.
yeah, I'm organizing the organizing. Actually, I want to stop the recording. I forgot that.